1 Samuel 30 verse 6, written from the New King James Version. Now David was greatly distressed, for the people spoke of stoning him, because the soul of all the people was grieved, every man for his sons and his daughters. But David strengthened himself in the Lord his God. We all have had those days when everything seems to go wrong. We have days when it seems as though we've come to the end of the road and there is no future ahead. In 1 Samuel 30, we see David experiencing the same kind of days. He had just returned from battle to discover that the enemy had attacked his camp. They had taken all his goods, and even worse, they kidnapped all his wives and children. This situation was so serious that his men, his followers, talked about stoning him to death. But 1 Samuel 30 verse 6 tells us how David handled this crisis. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. A crisis does not make a man. A crisis reveals what the man is made of. Character is not built in the crisis experiences of life. Character is built in the day-by-day experiences, in all the little decisions and actions that never attract attention. What we really are is revealed for everyone to see when the crisis comes upon us. Notice how David's men reacted when they discovered the terrible loss. Some sat and wept until they had no more tears to shed. Others complained and blamed David, and some even suggested that they stone him. People do the same thing today in trying to solve a crisis problem. They blame everybody else. They blame somebody else. David's men, 600 of them, suddenly moved from friends to enemies. One moment they were following him in the calm waters of everyday life. The next minute they were ready to stone him after encountering the storm. David did not allow himself to be defined by the fickle and intense emotions of his men. Instead, he turned to the Lord. Too many times our senses of identity and well-being is triggered by the opinions and attacks of people. Our security is frequently threatened by difficult circumstances. We need to understand that our true identity was settled at the cross. The noise of the crowd, the attack of friends, and the put-downs of family may tell us we are bad or worthless, defective, inferior, and rejected. But the truth of our new life in Jesus Christ says that we are loved, accepted, empowered, secure, righteous, valuable, and destined for an eternal reward. We have to choose the voice we will listen to. When we choose rightly, we live a secure and hopeful existence. Look what David did. He did shed tears like the rest of the soldiers because he also loved his family. But after that, he stopped feeling sorry for himself and he turned to the Lord for help. But David encouraged himself in the Lord his God. Here is how we can get the encouragement we need in the crisis times of our lives. The Lord is able to carry us through. Nothing is impossible with God. There is no problem of life too difficult for him to solve. So as David strengthened himself in the Lord, he turned to God's presence. This is the significance of the term, in the Lord. He turned from the situation and the prattle of the crowd to the presence of the Lord. This was confirmed by the next verse. Then David said to Abiathar the priest, Amalek's son, please bring the ephod here to me. The ephod was a garment of the priest and often a key to knowing God's direction. David understood the empowering presence of the Lord. When we are discouraged, it is common to turn to other people, television, or some kind of rescue. This easily and usually provides a temporary anesthesia, but not the solution or real deliverance. We must take time, make it a focus, and pursue the presence of God through meaningful prayer and His Word. In seeking the Lord's direction, David asked the priest, "Shall I pursue this troop? Shall I overtake them?" The priest answered, "Pursue, for you shall surely overtake them, and without fail recover all." Notice, before David made any move, he first determined the will of God concerning this. There are no accidents in life, there are only appointments. The crisis hours of life never comes as a surprise to God. God knows the end from the beginning, and He knew long ago that you would need help this day. So when the crisis invades your lives, the first thing we should do is to surrender to the will of God. God has a purpose to fulfill, and if we surrender to Him, it will all work out for our good and His glory. To fight God's will by complaining and blaming others will cause you to miss the blessing that God has for you and these experiences. David encouraged himself in the Lord his God by surrendering to the total will of God. But David didn't stop there. The next thing he did was to ask God for the strength to do what needed to be done. David and his men were tired from battle, and the emotional strain of the crisis had weakened them. But in obedience to God, they rode off in pursuit of the enemy. So where did David and his men get the strength they needed? The answer is simple. God gave it to them. When God tells us to do something, He always gives us the strength to do it. So as the story unfolds, David and his men eventually overtook the Amalekites, safely retrieved their loved ones, and recovered all of their goods, and then some of their enemies. David did not fall into the subjective sit, suck, and sour mode. He moved ahead in faith, obeying the promise of the Lord. I've heard it said that when you are going through a dark valley, don't stop. Each of us must embrace the proven promises and powerful provision of the Lord. You may not feel like it, you may not have any sense of certainty about the outcome. Still, we do have to trust Him. We know our God knows the way, shows the way, and goes the way with us.